gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Hold it, you're not that pretty. Hold it, man. Wait. I took up the wall.
I bear witness, there's only one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his final messenger. That's what I said, Larry, on the bungle fight. Thanking you.
How y'all doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition on Split Decision. With me today is the one and only Vada expert, Victor Conte. Pleasure having you on the show.
Keith, thank you very much for having me. I love your groove tune at the beginning. That's my style, baby.
Thank you so much. And let's get straight to it because we have a lot of questions by the fans. The public have a lot of concerns when it comes to drug testing in the sport of boxing due to the lack of it. So starting off, how does the process of fighters cycling off PEDs and steroids works in the sport of boxing?
Well, what needs to happen is 24/7, 365 testing. What currently is happening for the most part is that boxers sign up with Vada for a given period of time, typically between 8 and 12 weeks before a fight. And at that time, they're tested. But after the fight, then they can obviously, in terms of healing and tissue repair and recovery, they can go back and do performance-enhancing drugs up until the time they sign for their next fight, which at that time they can just simply taper off because it's an announced testing date when you start. And so this creates a significant loophole that actually you could drive a Mack truck through. So what you really need is 24/7, 365 testing. That is something that's being discussed now. When this Vada first started way back in the 2010, 2011 time frame, the first two boxers that entered were actually Nonito Donaire and Edwin Rodriguez, and both of them were sponsored by me, and they entered into 24/7, 365. And thereafter, the expense of doing that, obviously, each time you get tested, there's a significant expense involved. But thereafter, many others that I sponsored, and of course, many others that were sponsored either by the athletes, the boxers themselves, or management or promoters or whoever it was. But there is significantly more testing going on today than there was a decade ago when Vada started.
And just to clarify, the known date when a fighter start drug testing is when they sign the contract, and they know that when I sign the contract now, I have to make sure I'm clean in order to pass the Vada drug test. Is that correct?
That's correct. And as a result, it makes it relatively easy to circumvent. Now, is it better to remove the use of PEDs for an 8 to 12 week time frame before a fight than have no testing? Of course. But let me also say that the gains that are made during this period where there is no testing, those gains carry over. So it's not like you only get the gains from the drugs while you're using them. The benefits that you gain, especially in terms of using testosterone or any other sort of anabolic steroid, those lean muscle mass gains will carry over for months, if not years.
Oh, wow. So that was actually my next question. How beneficial is it for a fighter on fight night after cycling off PEDs if he does an 8-week Vada drug testing? If he's been cycling off for like months and then does an 8-week Vada drug testing, how beneficial is it fight night?
The use of drugs during the off season?
Yeah.
Let's put it in perspective. As you know, the king of boxing before Canelo was Mayweather, and he typically was fighting twice a year, September and May. And Canelo now has kind of changed that mold where he's fighting more frequently. And my understanding is that ever since he tested positive for clenbuterol, and then what was very significant to me is that he stepped up and did a hair follicle test. Now, that was something that I had recommended. And when he agreed to do that, and then it came back showing that the concentration was consistent with contaminated meat and not with intent to cheat, that really changed my opinion of Canelo. And I think since then, he has continued doing Vada testing at all times. Now, let me also, with the caveat, say this doesn't mean that there isn't some sort of a way to circumvent Vada, that he's not using some substance like IGF-1 long R3, insulin-like growth factor as one, or insulin, or microdosing testosterone, or using EPO. The very slick people typically that are flying under the radar are typically using these drugs at night. However, the testers now are getting smarter, and instead of showing up, you have what they call a whereabouts form that you fill out, and you give them an hour a day that you commit to be at a certain place, like the gym. So say you put 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, if you're not there, then they will come back or attempt to contact you. But now they're going at 8 o'clock at night. They're coming at 6 a.m. in the morning. And what that does, when you use these drugs, they will go up. They have a period of time where, let's just say, a cream-based or gel-based testosterone. It will go up and peak in the bloodstream after about 4 hours. And by 6 to 8 hours, it's back down and below the 4-to-1 TE ratio that's allowable. Now, Vada does another test. It's known historically as CIR, carbon isotope ratio testing. They now call it IRMS. But this can differentiate between your own body's endogenous testosterone, which is manufactured out of cholesterol, compared to synthetic testosterone, whether that be injection, cream, gel, a troche, or oral, that it can detect this for a given period of time, but thereafter it can come back down below that level. So what I'm trying to say is, can you completely eliminate PEDs, even with 24/7, 365 testing? Probably not. Can you restrict the dosage and frequency and the amount of drugs that they're using and how often they can use them? Yes, you can. So it's the classic, as they call it, the cat and mouse game. But Vada is by far the best testing out there. Everybody talks about, and Floyd Mayweather used to say, "Oh, I do the gold standard testing, which is USADA." USADA is not the gold standard testing. What they do with the UFC is not the gold standard testing. And the simple reason is because during the off season, until this period where they're signed to fight that we're talking about, that 8 to 12 weeks, they are not tested for any stimulants or any narcotics. So there are 70 stimulants and 12 narcotics that, unless they're using these on fight night, they don't even test for it. So there is such a gigantic loophole there in the Olympic testing, as well as the USADA testing that the UFC does, where the difference with Vada is when you sign their enrollment form, it states right at the top that they test for all substances at all times. So whenever they're testing you, they're testing for all the anabolic steroids and other peptides and growth hormone and EPO and all that, plus all of the stimulants. And for boxers, stimulants are very potent in terms of the positive effects it has upon training. So they can train longer, more repetition, faster, harder punches. And when you do that over a period of months during a training camp, of course the benefits are going to show up and you're going to perform better on fight night.
And what a lot of people want to know is how much gains from cycling off steroids does a fighter benefit fight night? Is it by like 20%, 25% approximately? Does that, boost his stamina, speed, power? Do you have any idea how much benefits they receive from cycling off
Well,
PEDs if they do
okay.
8-week out of drug testing?
So let's put it this way. What in my history, back in 2001 and 2, I helped a world-class sprinter named Tim Montgomery. They called him Tiny Tim, and he weighed 148 pounds. And we had a whole team of experts. Charlie Francis, the coach for Ben Johnson, was the track coach. Milo Sarchev, a professional bodybuilder, was involved in the strength and conditioning. And of course, we were using a whole array of performance enhancing drugs, something called the Clear, which is a modified, testosterone, insulin, EPO, thyroid, growth hormone, etc. And he gained, in 8 weeks of training, he gained from 148 to 176, 28 pounds. So his bench press increased from baseline was 265, and after 8 weeks he bench pressed 345. So you're talking an average in gains of 10 pounds per week for 2 months. Now thereafter, he ran indoors and won the silver medal at the World Championships. Then outdoors, we cut him back down. He actually competed indoors at 168, 20 pounds over. And then at outdoors, he competed at 160, where he also won the silver medal as well. But the point I'm trying to make is these are very powerful drugs. It's virtually, you can pick the right mom and dad, and that's important. But the gains that you make from using drugs, you wouldn't want to fight a guy that's on a full array of performance enhancing substances.
And the closer a fighter can get, cycling off steroids close to the fight, like 4 weeks before the fight, the more benefits they will receive. Like you said, so the closer you can get away with it to fight night, like, 4 weeks versus 8 weeks. Let's say I cycled off steroids 4 weeks before a fight for my upcoming fight. And then my partner, he cycled off PEDs 8 weeks before his fight. How much more benefit will I gain from taking PEDs than he does?
Well, the closer you can get to the fight, the better and greater the gains that you're going to retain. So this is why you see guys that drag their feet and don't sign up right away. And there have been guys in the past that have fought some of the snack fighters, and we have to chase them down. And they wait and they don't send in the forms and they give you excuses and blah, 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 blah. And that's because they want an opportunity for these drugs to clear their system, because the testers know that the minute that you sign that contract, oftentimes they're waiting on the side of the stage at the press conference, or they're there within 24 to 48 hours, because they understand that sometimes boxers miscalculate the taper period.
How long PEDs stay in your system? And does that vary for different PEDs?
Of course, it varies for different PEDs. And let me explain now, so people understand. Boxers or others who are subjected to testing, for the most part, are not doing anabolic steroids. They're doing testosterone. And the reason is because your body manufactures testosterone. It's an endogenous hormone. It's more difficult to differentiate between what your body creates and what you take from outside. But if you were to take, like you mentioned earlier, something like Trembolone or Parabolan or Primobolan or some of these more exotic steroids, they stay in the system for a long time. The longest, Nandrolone, which is called Decadurabolin in the bodybuilding world, has been known to be detected a year and a half after an injection. They call it the kiss of death. Once you take that steroid, you don't want to be tested with anytime soon. Minimum it stays in your system is for 6 months. So what I'm trying to tell you is when Balco happened, everybody in the media kept saying over and over and over that, oh, it's just a matter of time before they develop another designer. What's going to be the next designer like the clear that we used that was undetectable? Well, they're completely wrong, okay? Because the three designers that were involved with Balco, there are no designers after that. And there's a very good reason, and that's the following. It used to be for in Olympic testing, and all the rest follow the WADA protocol, that there were about, at that time, 35 steroids. I think now that number's up closer to 85. But what happened is that there were two prongs. The first prong to get a positive test for an anabolic steroid, the first prong was that it's similar in structure to testosterone. Well, all anabolic steroids are nothing more than modified molecules. They're all similar in structure to testosterone. The second prong was that there had to be some scientific evidence to prove that it promoted protein synthesis or muscle growth. And so the only way they could come after me and come after, I'm getting this feedback again for whatever reason. The only reason they could come after me and Balco for the clear, which was tetrahydrogestrinone, or THG was the acronym, was to remove the second prong. So what that meant is that they no longer needed to have, the second prong was you had to have scientific evidence to show that it promoted performance enhancement. When they removed that, any and all modified testosterone molecules or substances, that's all they needed as a criteria. And if they didn't know the name of it, they'd never seen it before, it didn't matter, you had a positive drug test. So as a result, so now what happened? They just eliminated all these designer steroids or modified testosterone molecules. So what they did is they went old school, which means they went back and started using testosterone. They started microdosing in lower doses. Instead of doing it once a week, they would divide that dose, whatever it may be, a couple 100 milligrams, by 7, and they would do a little bit every single day. And then they would do it at night, so that when they typically came to measure in the front, in the first thing in the morning, that they would be back down below the allowable limit. Now, the same thing with EPO. There was different types of next generation EPO products. Well, what they started doing is just extracting their blood and reinfusing it. So, and they would use growth hormone, because it's very difficult to test for growth hormone because your body secretes it. So in essence, what I'm saying is they're now using insulin like growth factor 1, testosterone. They are microdosing EPO. They're using these substances that are manufactured by your body, so it makes it more difficult to determine, was it produced by your own body's testosterone made out of cholesterol, or synthetic testosterone, which is made up of yams. And so it's a cat and mouse game. It's a, you know, the boxers get smarter and the testers get smarter. And if you notice, there was an article by Tom Hauser about USADA, and I believe they had tested in the neighborhood of 1,500 boxers. One positive test. So they're virtually catching nobody. Vada had all kinds of positives. And here's in part the reason why. USADA and Major League Baseball and the NFL and so on, as a standard test, they use the 4-to-1 TE ratio, testosterone to epitestosterone. As long as you're below that, you're good. Now, they may, at probably 5% of the samples, urine samples that they collect, let's say in Major League Baseball, they do test for this carbon isotope ratio for synthetic testosterone. But that means the other, in fact, I made that statement one time, and they went to Christiane Ayotte, the head of the Montreal lab for the Olympic testing, and she said, oh, no, that's not true. We probably test 10%. Okay, 10%. That means the other 90% are not being tested. Now, that's the difference between what Vada tests this for synthetic testosterone using this method on 100% of the samples they collect. So they realize which door to the barn is open. They're there tagging people. So if you remember, and I'll give you a classic example, years ago, that Lamont Peterson tested positive for testosterone. Well, when it came out, he'd went to a doctor, this John A. Thompson there in Las Vegas, and when you train very intensely, your free testosterone can become suppressed. So his total testosterone was normal, I think in the mid 550 range, but free testosterone was very low. So they put something called Testopel. And much like they do with the cows, where they insert these pellets in their ears, they make a little incision in the buttocks, and they put this, it's about the size of a grain of rice, and they use something called a troscar. It's like a little plunger, and they put it inside. Well, this is a time-release testosterone pellet that you change every 5 months. So his actual TE ratio was 3.77, right under the 4-to-1 ratio. But when they used the carbon isotope ratio test, he came back positive. And then all the rest of this came out. So the point is, USADA would not have caught him, WADA would not have caught him, Olympic caliber testing would not have caught him, but Vada did. And that's one of the primary differences, is they recognize what the boxers are using, when to test them in terms of time, like late at night or early in the morning, and they understand the process.
If a fighter takes small doses of testosterone, PEDs, small portions, small doses of it, how long does that stay in your system? If they try to like minimize the time span that it stays in your system, in case they get, of course, random drug tested and they want to pass it. So what is the time span of, staying in your system? Do you is it a week, 2 weeks, if you take small doses of testosterone?
Well, let's talk about a recent positive. The guy from Venezuela that was supposed to fight Benavides is coming up here on the 13th of November. I can't pronounce his name, but
Usitegi
tested positive for EPO. Okay. Now, how long it takes to clear the system first depends upon the method of administration. If you inject it in your quadricep, or you inject it into the adipose or fat tissue in your stomach, and depending upon the dose, if you do a normal dose, like typically the way it works is you do it what they call a therapeutic dosage initially, which means 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for 2 weeks. And that's to build up your red blood cell count. Thereafter, you reduce, you only take it 1 time a week. Now, when they're microdosing, instead of the 3 times or the 1 time, they take and divide that total dose, and they do it every day. So they do smaller amounts. If you do it, so by adipose tissue or like they do growth hormone or in your stomach, 43 hours, it's been shown. If you do it by IV, 19 hours, which means if you're doing a smaller dosage and you're timing it correctly, it can probably clear your system in 8 to 10 hours. So if you do it at night, by the time the testers come in the morning, you're going to be clear.
Well, that's going to be extremely difficult to catch a person like that that's doing that, though.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And like I say, what happens is that the boxers think that once they've passed that time on their whereabouts form that they've given for 1 hour a day that they'll be at the gym or wherever, they will say, okay, well, now I can do the injection so that it clears before the next day when they might come. Problem for that method is they're now showing up at gyms, they're showing up at boxers' houses at night, because they understand what they're doing and how they're circumventing So, I don't know exactly, when they went because I don't have privy to any of that information. But obviously, this Venezuelan 168 pounder got busted for EPO. If you look just a short while back, the same thing happened with Pascal. He got busted for growth hormone and EPO. So you see that this cat and mouse game, that the testers are getting smarter and more boxers are getting busted.
So to make it clear, that's during testing, right? But let's say before testing starts, off camp, before camp starts, let's say I'm a fighter, I'm taking small doses of testosterone and PED, so on and so forth. And then I have a fight coming up 8 weeks ahead. I have to sign the contract. I have to agree to Vada drug testing. I only need what's the time span I need to clean my system, to clean my body, so I could pass, Vada drug testing when I do start.
Depends upon the drug, but it's relatively quick. I'm talking a matter of days. Wow. So smart people that have experience with this and understand the way it works can definitely become a challenge to catch them using drugs.
Yeah. So okay. And can you explain?
Let me just elaborate on something that I just thought of, and that is this. A lot of this can be fixed by the boxers themselves. And what I'm working on, and I've been talking with Margaret Goodman about at Vada, is the group of fighters that I work with do Vada testing. So we're talking about Devin Haney, we're talking about Demetrius Andrade, we're talking about Julian Williams, we're talking on and on. I think that Nonito Donaire would be also willing to do this. A program could be put together where they could establish a 24/7, 365 program. There would be, you can't pin down the number, but about monthly or testing, maybe 8 times a year, 10 times a year, random testing for probably in the neighborhood of $20,000. I'm trying to put together at least 6 fighters, including those that I mentioned, and get them to enroll. And Canelo, I believe, is already doing this, into 24/7, 365 testing. We would encourage all boxers to do this. But those that were not, then when it came time to do the test, when you signed to fight someone who's not in the 24/7, 365 program, then they would come in, and then the frequency of testing for that 8 to 12 weeks would increase. So instead of being in the neighborhood of once a month, it could be in the neighborhood of once every other week or even once a week. So this would definitely be helpful and something we've talked about. And I just need to round up at least 6 of these top fighters that I work with and get them all enrolled and try to, re-jumpstart the way it originally started a decade ago with a couple fighters that started the program. In fact, Nonito Donaire did this for the first 2 years. He did 24/7, 365 testing. So this takes money. This takes a coordinated effort. This takes the desire and a group of fighters to lead by example. But I think we're close to something like this in the near future.
Can you explain to the public what's the difference between PEDs and steroids, so they will understand the difference between steroids and PEDs?
Well, PEDs is a more general classification, performance enhancing drugs. So that could be EPO, that could be insulin, that could be growth hormone. Those are not steroids. So the anabolic steroids, they're all related in structure to testosterone. That's the granddaddy of all anabolic steroids. Testosterone is an anabolic steroid. And you've got trembolone, nandrolone, primobolan, parabolan. There's many different species, but they're simply modified testosterone molecules, all anabolic steroids.
Which is more beneficial, PEDs or steroids for boxers?
Well, if I had to say what I feel is that would boil down to, because you really can't use anabolic steroids now. They will bust you in a heartbeat because it stays in the system too long and it's traceable and you will get caught. So in terms of anabolic steroids, the one that the boxers are using is testosterone. And I think that's a misconception. They think, anabolic steroids, they can use this stuff and just taper off. Sorry, it stays in the system too long. Even oral of a fast clearing still stays in the system like 4 to 6 weeks. So you wouldn't want to take that. Testosterone give you the same type of benefit as the other anabolic steroids, but it'll clear and be back down below a detectable limit in a matter of days. So that's what they're using, testosterone, not the other anabolic steroids. Now, you asked me what I think is the most potent one. I would say that it would be EPO or erythropoietin, because the description that those who have used it give for that drug is it makes you like a machine. You just don't get tired. You can just keep going and keep going. You're the Energizer Bunny. And that is what it does. It multiplies the number of red blood cells. And on imagine each red blood cell is like a bus. And there's an area on the red blood cell called hemoglobin. Those are like the seats on the bus. So if you've got X number, say 5 oxygen molecules can attach, and you increase the number of buses and the number of seats, well, every time you take a breath, it delivers the oxygen molecules, let's say, to the muscle tissue in your leg, but it's a two-way street. So imagine you got a freeway system and you're delivering these oxygen molecules, and we'll call them little dump trucks, better than a bus, but they dump the oxygen molecules. Then they pick up what are called the metabolic waste byproducts. Everybody's heard of lactic acid or the fatigue acid, but lactic acid, ammonia, carbon dioxide, these other substances that promote fatigue, right? And they bring them back up. And when you exhale, those go out of your system. So you're reducing the buildup of the fatigue acids, delivering more oxygen. Plus, it even does have anabolic effects. It will make you stronger as well. And a lot of people think, well, why would you take EPO? It doesn't make you faster. Well, let me give you an example. One time I worked with, and this was in whatever year, around 2003, I worked with a world-class female sprinter who won the 60-meter gold medal at the World Championships. And that event lasted just about under 6 seconds or under 7 seconds, in the high sixes. And they would say, well, how does that benefit an athlete? Well, because it's a training drug. So if you can do more repetitions at a faster pace, of course, ultimately that's going to carry over on fight night or race night. So these are training drugs, if that makes sense. So at the time that they rated Balco, they could not believe we had 60-meter sprinters using drugs, because they weren't even administering the tests until you did 10,000-meter run. They thought it was only beneficial for the marathon or for people that were involved in endurance sports. Well, what do you think training is? You train for a couple hours, right? So if I had to single out what I believe is for a boxer specifically, what it would be the most beneficial performance-enhancing drug, it would be EPO or erythropoietin.
And EPO is classified as a PED, or?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. And so if I have stamina issues, right? Let's say I have stamina issues, or a fighter has stamina issues, and they take EPO, they no longer gonna have stamina issues. They're gonna have the best stamina in the world, right?
They're just not gonna get tired. That's the description that I was given, And when you think, let's just say as an example, we use 200 meters as an example. If you can run, 30 seconds, 6 repetitions in a row in your training, and you're a 200-meter runner, and you might run under 20 seconds. And now in training, instead of running 30 seconds, you're running 27 or 28 seconds, which is way faster, right? And you do that 6 times in a row, and you do that every training session for the competitive off season, by the time you show up at the competition, you're going to be a world beater. So you can take a guy that you just don't want to compete against somebody that's on a wide array of performance enhancing substances. But I would say, to put it into a number you can understand, everybody's watched the 100 meters. They know Usain Bolt and you know what goes on there. I would guess that for a male, that these drugs would make you run 2 to 3 meters faster in 100 meters. So you would go from first, you'd be last, and you'd now be first. I would say for a female, because they have less, you know, testosterone, about 10% compared to a male circulating normally, the benefits to them are even greater, and they may be 4 to 5 meters faster in 100 meters. So it's, you know, you can take a mediocre, of course you got, you know, I don't mean to discount the coaching and the training and the genetics and all the rest of it, but I'm just saying those items being equal, and you put somebody on some of these powerful PEDs, and they're just going to completely destroy the other competitor.
And this is a sport where you could physically kill your opponent, so you can see why it's such a big problem for fighters to get away with taking EPO, you know, if they could, due to the loopholes in the system. And, you know, one thing in common between steroids and PED is that they both ban and they enhance a fighter performance. That's correct, right? Just
absolutely, and an excellent point, AKHi. It's not like baseball where you're hitting a ball over a fence more times than the other guy or running faster than the guy in the lane next to you. The objective of the sport is bodily harm. It's brain damage. So when as I mentioned earlier about, you know, in a 2-month period that a guy increases bench press by 80 pounds, your punching power is going to be significantly improved. So the damage you're going to do, your speed, your power, your endurance, your reaction time. I mean, PEDs, it's certainly an unfair advantage, and especially in boxing as well as MMA, we need to do everything we can to eliminate them from the sport. Is there a program that will ever be developed that is foolproof? The answer is no. Can you significantly reduce the use of these drugs and catch a lot more boxers? And if the penalties or consequences become greater, you know, this is what I don't like. Somebody gets busted and they get a 3-month suspension. Well, might as well get no penalty. You know, there needs to be something of consequence, like 2 years. So if you know you're not going to be able to compete for 2 years, they now changed it in Olympic sport to 4 years to make people think about this. It used to be 2 years, now it's 4 years. But, you know, these programs are designed to enable, harbor, and promote the use of drugs. Let me give you an example of what I mean. It used to be before 2015 in Olympic caliber sport, because here's an important aspect, is what they call missed tests. They used to allow 2 missed tests, and the third one was considered a positive. In 18 months, for years, from way back, you know, till 2015, so for 15, 20 years or more, that was the rule, that you missed 2 in 18 months, and the third one was a positive. So imagine this is like a speeding ticket on your driving record. And you get the 2 of them, and then you just wait and don't get another one until the 18 months comes up, and then you can take another strike like in baseball. It's like 2 strikes, you're out, 3 strikes, you're out, but 2 and you're still up to bat. In 2015, what they did, and I don't know why the general public never grasped this or people didn't see this, but they reduced the length of time to get those 2 positives and the third one be a positive to only 1 year. So they made it easier to cheat instead of harder. Now, why would they do that? Because positive drug tests are bad for business. It's all about the sponsors. It's all about Coca-Cola and McDonald's and them not being tainted. And that's the reason they even do the testing. It has nothing to do with a fair and level playing field or the health and safety of the athletes. So people need to understand this. You know, now Vada is all about health and safety. the founder, Margaret Goodman, was a part of the medical commission for Nevada for a decade, and her significant other, Flipomonsky, was in that same position for a decade. He was the one that actually introduced anabolic steroid testing to boxing in the world, which is in the state of Nevada. So this is kind of where it all started, and it has continued to evolve and grow from there. Can it be better? Does there need to be more money? Does there need to be adjudication or penalties that are standardized by some sort of a federal entity? Of course, it could be better, but it's improving. It's improving, and I think anyone in boxing will see that they want to, at the very least, on a level playing field. So people like Devin Haney, people like others that they know they're clean, whomever they may be, they want to make sure that the guy they're fighting is clean. So they're the ones that are demanding this of the promoter. So who do you think might be in a position to do it? It's the A side. So the responsibility here is on A side fighters to step up and lead by example.
That's right. And but the only bad thing about it, is that recently, the past 2 months, 2 fighters tested positive for PEDs. One of them didn't even get suspended. Forget about getting suspended for 3 months or 6 months. Oscar Valdez was allowed to fight even though he failed, for phentermine. So what's your take on the WBC president Suleiman stating that phentermine is not a PED in defense of Oscar Valdez?
I believe that he knows that is a lie. He straight up knows it's a lie. Okay. He, for whatever the number of years, 5 years or whatever it was, had the WBC following the Vada rules. All of a sudden, Bob Arum starts putting heat on him and all this other financial pressure and the rest of it. And he decides to move the goalpost and change the rules after the positive test occurs. This is a disgrace. He's an embarrassment to boxing. I mean, everybody knows. People like Andre Ward and Tim Bradley spoke out on ESPN saying this is pathetic. I mean, just ridiculous. And what was the basis of that decision? You're looking at this right here. You see this? That's what controlled that decision was money. Did he deserve to fight? Absolutely not. Did he likely get this phentermine by accident? I don't think so. You're not going to find that in contaminated meat. These are dangerous drugs, amphetamine from that family. Phentermine is from the amphetamine family. And as you know, and I've stated previously, there have been several cyclists and other athletes, because EPO thickens your blood, that, or phentermine, even as and phentermine does not thicken your blood, EPO does, and several athletes have died from that as well. But phentermine, the stimulant, has also caused cardiac arrest or a heart attack, and there have been deaths. So that is a powerful drug. It enhances speed, recovery, endurance, power, stamina. Of course, it's a performance-enhancing drug. There's tons of science to promote that. So for the WBC president to come out and say it's not a performance-enhancing drug, that's like announcing, okay, by the way, I've decided I'm going to go back and the world is flat now. It's no longer round. That's how embarrassing that decision that he made is.
That's a great analogy. I couldn't have came up with a better analogy. Now, the WBC changed the rules now that phentermine is not a PED. Did he actually change the rule to phentermine is not a PED?
Well, here's what you have to understand. They're continuing to have their boxers tested by Vada, but Vada doesn't adjudicate. So here's where the problem comes in. That's left up to the state commission. So Arizona, and then they picked them on that by the ABC, agreed with them to change this rule. So Vada just gives you the result. Here's a positive for phentermine. What are you going to do with it? Then they made this wacky decision. So here's the point. And I know that a writer talked to Bob Bennett in Nevada and others, heads of different commissions, and they said, if, let's just say an example was given that during the Wilder and Fury fight, that one of them tested positive for phentermine. The response from Bob Bennett was basically this: if they had submitted a doctor's prescription and there was medical reason which would weight loss in advance, then that would be okay. But if they hadn't declared this or submitted this, he just said there would be a problem, meaning that fight would probably not have went on in the state of Nevada. So that's what happened. It's not so much Vada's finding or that they turned it over. It's that the Arizona Commission, this tribal group out there in Arizona, and the WBC, due to pressure from Bob Arum, decided, listen, boxing's taking a hit here, the pandemic, we haven't been making much money, this is all good, bad, we need to figure out what to do about this. And whatever deal they made behind closed doors, they decided to move the goalposts in the middle of the game.
Wow. So you could legally take Phentermine now and have a doctor prescription for it and get away with it. Oscar Valdez could do it again. Vada could say, hey, he failed for Phentermine, but now you're allowed to do it because the WBC is going to say, hey, that's fine. And
that's
the
not actually true. Let me give you another example. When one of my fighters, Demetrius Andrade, fought BJ Saunders, and they popped him for a stimulant, okay? And the Massachusetts Commission upheld that finding. He lost his title. He lost a $2.3 million purse, and he was suspended for testing for a stimulant just similar to Valdez. So the Massachusetts Commission made a completely different decision than Arizona and the WBC. And of course, that was WBO.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is, if Oscar Valdez fights again in Massachusetts, the same in his hometown, and the WBC, will the WBC allow him to fight again if he tests positive for Phentermine?
Well, they've established this precedent for sure, so they would probably be congruent with their previous decision, which is wrong. It's all wrong. Everything about that decision is wrong. It's unethical. It's all motivated by the cash.
So, and that's my point that I was making, is that he could take it now legally as long he fights in his hometown and as long he continue to be the WBC champion. He could take this drug and get away with it.
That's the message that decision gave, is that you can, but the caveat is what I just indicated, depends on where the fight is. So in a different commission, that's exactly what's wrong with boxing. Is it's not only that there's not enough testing, but when you do have testing and you do find a positive result and you turn that over to a commission, one may suspend the boxer and the other one may allow the fight to go on. So it's the wild, wild west still.
How, the WBC obviously said, the WBC president Suleiman said it's not a PED, even though fighters in the past have died from this drug, Phentermine. Can you talk about that? Have anyone in the past used this drug and passed away in other sports?
Yeah, they started using this in the 1960s, mid 1960s, and I think the guy's name was Tom, whatever his last name was.
Tom Simpson. Tom Simpson.
He was from the UK and Tour de France rider. And in 1965, he won the BBC British Broadcast Communication Athlete of the Year. In 1967, in the middle of the Tour de France, he had cardiac arrest and died. So this became a very high profile story about this would be like the equivalent back then of like Lance Armstrong dying in the middle of a race. I mean, this guy was a world-class elite. He wasn't just some cyclist. And therefore, this was very widely reported. And there have been many others since then, cyclists and other athletes, because stimulants can cause your system, it increases your heart rate. And with each and every, they call it stroke volume, that with every heartbeat, you're pushing more blood and more blood So when you combine that with exertion, you can cause cardiac arrest or heart attack.
Wow. So after, that being the history, there's history there of fighters dying using this drug. The WBC president Suleiman came out and said it's not a PED when Oscar Valdez failed for that drug. Now, what's your opinion also on his decision to increase the combuterol limit too?
That wasn't just done by him. That was done more on an Olympic and WADA level. And they had positives for clenbuterol as far back as the Beijing Olympics in 2008. And it came out later that they had, all these positives that they decided to not come out with them because as they researched, they determined that it was traceable to contaminated meat.
You talked about the WBC, of course, increasing the combuterol limit, when it comes to, I don't know if it's WADA or Vada. Did they change it in Vada too, or was it just WADA?
It's called a threshold. Or an allowable limit. So Vada changed it. In terms of these thresholds, Vada uses the same standard as WADA. So their clenbuterol level is the same.
Okay,
but what is different is where they test for all substances at all times. So you're not gonna test positive for something that they don't test for, and that's the huge difference. Is people don't realize you're not going to test positive for something that they're not testing for. So if they're not testing for it, that gives you the green light, open season, use all you like, and that's the problem with WADA and USADA.
Yeah, before we get into that, I just want to, ask the question: if I eat contaminated meat, will I pass Vada drug testing?
No, you would test positive. Okay, let me give you two other examples. One is marijuana. Now Vada has not tested for over a decade for marijuana. The Nevada Commission recently, first it was at 15 was the allowable limit. Then they raised it to 150. They increased it 10 times. In the near future, I believe WADA, the entire Olympic movement, will eliminate marijuana entirely. Now, put that in the context of the Nevada Commission's decision to fine Chavez Jr., whatever it was, $900,000 for smoking weed. And now they don't test for it anymore because they don't consider it to be a performance-enhancing substance.
Right. So can you tell me what's the difference between Vada and water? The difference between Vada and water.
Okay, we'll start with WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency. They do not do testing. They make up the rules. It's called the WADA Code. So this is a governing body that makes up the rules, and you have whatever it may be, 35, 40 accredited laboratories that do the Olympic style testing around the world, and they do the proficiency testing to make sure they're producing accurate results. They give them the license or the accreditation. So that's what WADA does. Everybody goes, oh, WADA is the gold standard. WADA doesn't even do testing. They make up rules. I don't particularly think their scientists are very smart, frankly. I think the whole basis of WADA, like I said before, is all about protecting the logo of McDonald's and Coca-Cola and not about the health and safety of athletes. Now, USADA follows the WADA code. VADA does not. Okay. What that means is the primary difference is, and I want to explain something else at the end that will make a lot of sense, is that they do testing for certain prohibited substances. They have two lists out of competition. So for boxers, that means from the date the fight is signed until fight night, midnight the night before the fight occurs. You can use all the stimulants you like. You can use all the narcotics you like. You can use opioids. You can do whatever you want. Only on fight night are these prohibited. Now, during out of competition, anabolic steroids, EPO, growth hormone, those are all included. But what happens with VADA, and the difference is they test for all prohibited substances at all times. So you cannot use stimulants during training camp. Now, here's the crazy part. As I told you earlier, that what the boxers and other athletes are doing now is they're not using steroids. They're using synthetic testosterone, creams, gels, and microdosing. However, there's this test that I call it carbon isotope ratio. Now they call it IRMS, that tests that. That particular test has a positive rate of 5%. Every other test performed has a positive rate of 1%. So if you had a test that caught 5 times more than any other test, wouldn't you use that test frequently? So that's what Vada does. And every single urine sample that they collect, they do this synthetic testosterone test on. USADA does maybe 5%, maybe Major League Baseball, when I said 5%, and they corrected me and said, we do 10%. That means 90% of UFC fighters are not being tested for synthetic testosterone, period. And neither are our Olympic athletes. So if that's what everybody's doing, and the science shows that that test is 5 times more effective than any other test, why do you think WADA would not do that, and USADA would not do that, and UFC would not do that? Because I believe they lack a genuine interest in catching people, because it's bad for business, and it's all about the cash. And the whole damn program is designed to aid, abet, and promote the use of drugs.
So that's a big difference between WADA and Vada. That's a huge difference. And even off camp, when the fight is not tested, the fighters could pretty much take anything. If a fighter is doing,
their criticism is that, and this is a valid point, that Vada doesn't adjudicate. I think that's good, because they're independent. They just hand it over to the commission, and it's their job to do the right thing. With USADA, they do the adjudication. So let me tell you what problem that creates for boxing. Travis Tigard has said publicly that he will not test any boxers unless they get to adjudicate. So you know what happens when you get a positive test with USADA? The first time you're going to get a 4-year penalty. Boxing's not going to go, no commission is going to go for that. So what I'm telling you is USADA testing, there was that big debate. Well, who's better? Is it Vada? Is it USADA? Well, USADA doesn't exist anymore. They're exclusive to the UFC. Now, let me tell you what I don't like about that, okay? First of all, I went back and looked at the financial records of USADA, and Travis Tigard, the CEO, this is a government-funded entity that does Olympic testing for the American athletes. A few years back, he was making a salary of like $180,000. And others, the scientific director, were right in the same 180, 150 type range. Bam, he gets this contract from Jeff Nowitzki, the head of the testing for the UFC. And all of a sudden, his salary goes up from like 2015 to today. It's something like $675,000 plus perks. The president of the United States only makes $400,000. What's this guy who's operating a government-funded business raking the cash in, but nobody else in his organization is making a penny more than they were 5 years ago? So you get what I'm trying to say. I believe there's corruption going on.
So when it came to Billy Joe Saunders' situation, you talked about when he tested for, against Demetrius Andrade, you said there was a powerful drug. Quote, this substance clears the body in 24 hours. So we believe he's been using this substance for a long time, and he's been tested. But the WADA don't test for this substance, and that's what we were talking about there. So it's initially, if you don't get tested within a day, and after taking this substance, you could pass the test.
Let me say, that depends upon the dosage too. And at most, it's probably 72 hours or 3 days, but some could clear in 24 hours. You're right. So what happened was, the very first time he signed the papers, and shortly thereafter, within a day or two at most, they tested him. They caught him the very first time. So the clearance ratio, the amount of time. Now, I had seen him previous to this. He'd be 30 days out from fight and be weighing 190, looking like chubby man. All of a sudden, he's coming in at 160. How the hell is he cutting all this weight? Try accelerating his heart rate, okay, and training with the use of stimulants where you don't get tired and all the rest of it. So WADA and there was UKAD, UK anti-doping. They follow WADA code and they don't test for stimulants at a competition. So his entire career, he'd never been tested. His lawyer and himself failed to look into the rules of Vada, and he probably didn't even know they were going to be testing. He didn't even pay attention. You know, it's right there when you sign it. It says if you don't bother to read the opening paragraph, you're stupid. So why he did that, I don't know. But I suspected before he was even tested that he was using stimulants, and it turned out that I was right.
Wow. Yeah, and WADA still doesn't test for that, or do you know if they do or don't?
They do not. They do not. That means every single UFC fighter out there is not being tested for any stimulants. 70 stimulants on the list are open season. Use all you like. So you want to use methamphetamine, you want to use amphetamines, you want to whatever you'd like to use. You know, you want to use phentermine? Go ahead.
But Vada does test for those.
Vada tests for all 70. You're not allowed to take stimulants. In sports where you cut weight, you don't think stimulants help you? Phentermine is called Adipex P, the trade name. That's an extremely popular weight loss drug that doctors prescribe. So where do you get this without a prescription? So this isn't in contaminated meat. So all of a sudden for Valdez to show up with this in his system and say, oh, I think I drank some herbal tea, I don't know. Do a search on Google. You will never find a single case where any tea has caused a positive drug test for phentermine. This was the classic dog ate my homework BS story.
Well, obviously Oscar Valdez, that's the excuse he used. He said that, he received phentermine from herbal tea. So you're saying there isn't any herbal tea or tea in the world that has phentermine in it, right?
In the history of the world, there's never been one found to date. So that'd be, once again, that's like saying the world is flat. Trust me. I mean, it's such a ridiculous excuse. It's embarrassing that they would even come up with that. And I believe it was somebody from his legal team. Somebody was trying. Oh, I'll tell you exactly where that came from. Because it was such a popular weight loss drug, they actually came out with a generic product that you could buy that did not contain phentermine, but they called it phentermine herbal tea. But it didn't contain phentermine. So they did it as a marketing ploy. So they came up with this because I'm sure his lawyer likely went on the computer and said, oh, look at this, phentermine tea. But phentermine tea does not contain phentermine. It's just a complete bullshit marketing ploy. So they went with that because what else are they going to present? They had nothing valid, nothing credible, no receipts, no nothing. It was like, oh, I don't know. My dog ate my homework. Sorry. So do I think that story has any credibility? Less than zero.
And he never submitted the herbal tea to Vada or anything like that.
No, but that's what you should do. That's how you mitigate the consequences. That's what Canelo did. Canelo gave a hair test. Canelo submitted receipts from the restaurant, receipts from and information from the slaughterhouse. He traced it all the way back. So, and he still got whatever it was, 6 months or whatever he served. But since then, and be clear in understanding, I'm not saying that I'm positive Canelo's not on drugs. He may very well be on drugs. He just hasn't tested positive, and he is in very stringent testing by Vada. Now, he may have some super smart people that are helping him circumvent. I don't know that. I'm certainly not saying that. I'm just saying, that no testing program is foolproof.
Yeah, from this conversation, you pretty much saying, even though Vada have all this strict rules and you guys on top of it, at the end of the day, it's not 100% you guys could catch a fight. If a fighter is cheating, it's not 100% you guys gonna catch him every time.
That's correct. And I'm not formally affiliated with Vada in any way. I just refer fighters there, and anyone that will go. In the initial stages, we did have some meetings, and they asked me a lot of questions, and I provided my input. But they also talked to Dick Pound, the founder of WADA, and Don Catlin, the head of the Olympic testing lab at UCLA, and many other experienced people in the anti-doping world.
Yeah, and you talked about that. Usually, it takes the A side to push for Vada testing because you have to be, the A side could force the fight to be on an even playing field, right? Caleb Plant, he came out and he openly talked about his concern for why Canelo is not pushing for Vada drug testing during negotiations. Why he's not the one that's pushing for an even playing field, because he felt like, hey, we should do 12-week Vada drug testing. He wanted to do only 10. Now, should fighters be subjected to Vada drug testing out of competition?
Absolutely. The only issue is the cost. So, and you need people like Canelo, like anyone else that makes that, large sums of money, to just step up, enroll in 24/7, 365, and lead by example. And the more that do it, the better. And like I said earlier, I've had these discussions with Dr. Goodman, and my plan is to go pitch to at least 6 of the fighters that I work with and get them involved in 24/7, 365, and even provide some of the sponsorship dollars to make that happen. And then once we've got a core group that's all doing this, that's a part of it, then you may have others. And the expense is not as great. I hear Eddie Hearn and other people talking about, oh, it costs so much money, blah, 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 blah. Once again, it depends on the length of time of the testing. But you're talking about, for both fighters, somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000, maybe $10,000 a fighter. So if you're making $1 million, is $10,000 a lot of money to be on a level playing field and look out for the health and safety and provide that assurance that there's stringent testing?
So in your opinion, how can we fix this issue in boxing to make Vada drug testing mandatory for at least 12 weeks before a championship fights? Not all fighters, at least the championship fights have a 12-week Vada drug testing mandatory. I mean, that could be done.
That's not true. Listen, Devin Haney's getting ready to fight in 4 weeks. We submitted all the forms on October 26th, and then there was all these delays, and I still don't even think JoJo signed the forms and got them in. You play the hand that you're dealt. Sometimes you get a royal flush, you get the 12 weeks, and sometimes you end up with less. But you want some testing in place. And so I wish there could be longer. Yes, with Caleb, we wanted 12 weeks, but we did end up, I think, with 10 weeks. And a very aggressive program. So Caleb and Canelo have been tested quite frequently for this fight.
Yeah, well, for Canelo case, you saying, excuse me, for Devin Haney case, you saying they haven't got tested yet, and we 4 weeks.
That's right. Well, because they couldn't finalize the venue, or I don't know why JoJo seemed to be dragging. I saw him the other night, that on his live feed that he was talking about, doing all this, but it only takes like 20 minutes to fill out these forms. I fill them out for most of the fighters that I work with and submit them. So why does it take day after day after day? And let me give an example. When Nonito Donaire fought Casimero, they dragged their heels for 7 days. Now, Memo Heredia, who was advising Casimero at the time, a known drug supplier, he said I can clear any drug in 48 hours. Well, why, when they got the letter on Tuesday, did they not submit the forms until Saturday afternoon after the fight had already been canceled, because they'd been told every single day that they were going to cancel the fight if they don't get the forms in. Then they cancel the fight, and mysteriously the forms show up. Then he was tested the following Tuesday, but that was 7 days after he got the original notice. So you need to get the forms in promptly, because as we just discussed, some of these drugs can clear in 24 to 48 hours.
Wow. Yeah, so there's plenty of loopholes you could get around by.
When you see people dragging their feet and not enrolling and giving excuses, they're likely testing, they're tapering off drugs, waiting for the drugs to clear before they enroll.
So if, in your opinion, if a fighter turned down Vada drug testing, they say no, for no reason whatsoever, most likely they dirty, right?
I would say that the media needs to be all over them asking why you're not doing the testing, and especially if the A side's willing to pay for it, or they're dictating that there's going to be testing, and why do you drag your heels? Why do you not do the testing? Seems like you have something to hide.
And to eliminate that issue, shouldn't Vada drug testing start as soon as fighters start negotiating instead of when they sign the contract? Like, as soon as they start negotiating, hey, if you want to fight, you need to agree to Vada drug testing right now before we even negotiate. Would that eliminate some of the issue?
I don't know how you enforce that. How do you enforce when there is no fight that the testing start? Who's going to pay for it? I don't think the promoter is going to pay for it. I will tell you, my experience is this testing by Vada is fighter driven. It's not the promoters that want this testing. They don't want testing, because there's been several cases, Lamont Peterson, Andre Berto, where they've invested $250,000 to $500,000 in promoting these fights, and then somebody pops positive. They lose all that money. So they're certainly not looking to have more testing. The promoters themselves, there's a financial incentive there to not do testing. It comes from the boxers forcing, and they either pay themselves or have a sponsor that pays, or they demand that the promoter pays. But the testing is boxer driven. It's not promoter driven.
And a fan question, he asked, you had an exchange with Manny Pacquiao manager over Vada drug testing not too long ago. What was that all about? What was the issue there?
It was the issue of them not turning in the forms to Vada when they were originally required to do so, or asked to do so on Tuesday. And they didn't do it Tuesday. They didn't do it Wednesday. There were several exchanges, and even memos said that they would do it, on Thursday, and it didn't happen until Saturday at 1 p.m. By that time, Rachel Donaire had canceled the fight at 11 a.m. Once they got the email canceling the fight, mysteriously the forms came in. So I believe they were dragging their heels and avoiding enrolling, and for whatever reason, but highly suspicious. So I called him out, and of course he was, calling me all sorts of names publicly, and I have no respect for that guy at all. I mean, I've heard all kinds of things about him recently that, stuff will be coming out here shortly. Manny Pacquiao is running for president, as everybody knows, and they're digging him out, and I think they're going to find all kinds of stuff about that guy and about Manny and about Manny Pacquiao promotions. But what I heard was they didn't have a valid license since 2012, so they were operating illegal for all that time.
Valid license when it comes to what?
To boxing.
Wow.
I don't think that Sean Gibbons has a valid license as a boxing manager. I think he's been operating illegally for years. That's what I've been told.
Yes,
so
sir.
If he's not one, Sean, step up, show the world.
If you clean, take the test, and that's what Vada is all about. So, great talking with you. I really appreciate you, breaking it down, when it comes to how drug testing work in the sport of boxing. Thank you so much, Victor Conte. The last message you want to give to the boxing fans?
my appeal is directly to the boxers. Join Devin Haney, join Demetrius Andrade, join Caleb Plant, join Julian Williams, other fighters that step up and have this testing routinely. But for a reasonable amount, if you're successful and a champion and making money, for in the neighborhood of $20,000 a year, you can join and do 24/7, 365 and lead by example. And I understand guys making less may not be able to afford $20,000 a year, but many boxers can. And I would like all of them to reach out to Vada and request and take that step.
And last question, Victor. How many fighters you know of are enrolled in the year-round Vada drug testing? I know you mentioned Donaire.
Well, that's not current. This is in the past. So he was in for a couple of years, years back. But he does enroll fight by fight, and that's because that's what they can afford to pay for. So they're still doing this camp testing and not year-round testing. So, like I say, I have had discussions and I'm working on that, but I have to get these boxers to put up the money to enroll in 24/7, 365 and lead by example. I think if I can get somewhere between 6 and 10 fighters to do that, we can create a movement here, and it will in turn. It's not going to eliminate drugs in boxing, but I think we can significantly reduce the use of drugs in boxing.
So currently, there is no fighter that's doing year-round.
My understanding is the only one that is Canelo.
So Canelo is doing, because from my understanding, he turned down 12-week Vada drug testing, according to Caleb Plant, when they were negotiating.
I'm not sure that's accurate.
Well, according to Caleb Plant.
I'm not sure that's accurate. I think that he has, ever since the clenbuterol positive, that since then, that he has been routinely tested. And that means in between fights. And if you look at recently, how many fights has he had? He's had 4 fights in the last period of time? So he's clearly been nonstop in testing for at least a year or more.
Well, Caleb Plant, when he was asked on the press conference for the Canelo fight this weekend, he actually mentioned that when he was negotiating with Canelo Alvarez back in September, neither fighter have gotten tested, and it was 6 weeks to the fight. And then obviously the fight,
Who said this?
Caleb Plant. He mentioned that.
I can tell you that they did 10 weeks. I know.
Yeah. For this one, but for the September date, he mentioned that 6 weeks into the fight, neither fighter had gotten a drug test.
Only because that was the length of time before the fight date. They tried to rush him in like 5 or 6 weeks. Do you want to fight? So that wasn't enough time to have a proper camp as well as adequate testing. So he turned it down.
And then on the Brian Custer interview, Caleb Plant mentioned that he was pushing for 12-week Vada drug testing.
He was.
And Canelo, 12 weeks, you say plus?
He was pushing for 12, but they didn't negotiate the fight, and it got down to 10, and then they agreed on 10. But that's because there's many other terms and conditions here. It's not just about drug testing. There's all sorts of other issues. So when they finalized the deal, it was 10 weeks out, and that's when the enrollment forms were submitted, and that's when the testing started. So they did do 10 weeks. Now, Caleb was pushing for 12, 100%. Caleb's a clean fighter. I mean, he's all about testing. He's always been about testing. So, it wasn't that Canelo was refusing. They just hadn't come to terms. But you've got venue issues. You've got all kinds of other aspects of the negotiation. I don't think it was about the testing. I really don't.
The only reason I'm saying that because they had a long duration of time before that to negotiate all the little sort of things. So, it kind of raised the question, why only take it 10 weeks before when they had all that time before to negotiate all the little details?
The fight, that's the reason.
Right. So, I appreciate you. Last thing you want to tell the fans before I let you go.
Clean boxing rocks. That's all I can say. It's a different sport because of the objective being bodily harm, and the more fighters that sign up to do testing, it's not only a level playing field, but as Margaret Goodman and Flip Pomansky have always been about the health and safety of the boxers, and that should always be foremost and number one.
Thank you so much, Victor. Pleasure having you. Whenever we have any questions on drug testing, Vada, so on and so forth, we will, gladly have you back on the show. It was an honor talking with you.
AKHi, thank you very much. I respect you a lot.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. So that was Victor Conte breaking down everything when it comes to the sport of boxing, how the rules work. And, Victor Conte is an expert in this game. Like I said before, this man right here knows it all. That's why I believe Vada hired him in order to get his expertise on the boxing game, on how, steroids, PEDs work, so on and so forth. So you heard it from Victor Conte himself. He answered all of y'all questions when it came to PEDs, steroids, how they work, how fighters could take PEDs in order to get away and pass the drug testing. How beneficial is it? Is phentermine a drug or not? So on and so forth. So yeah, boxing is the wild, wild west. There's so much corruption. There's so many loopholes in the system. So, if you are clean, take the test. Take the test. If you're the A side, then demand Vada testing. Then demand your opponent to do Vada testing in order to end up on an even playing field. If you turn down Vada drug testing, then obviously it's highly suspicious. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines and having you guys call in. So the number is in the description box. Therefore, I'm going to open up the phone lines in a few. So go ahead and hold on. Yeah, 1 2 1 2. All right, things sound good. So go ahead and call in. I'm gonna pick up the phone calls in a few just to let you guys know. I mean, that's a lot. I believe Victor Conte mentioned that before random drug testing was presented in sports, he believes it was 85% of the fighters that were cheating. Now he believes it's 65% of the fighters that are cheating after the random drug testing. So what I'm trying to say is, obviously, random drug testing is not going to eliminate it, but it will definitely help up the process to have an even playing field in the sport of boxing. Because if a fighter gets busted cheating, if he tested positive for PEDs or steroids, guess what? That means this is not their first time doing it. That means they have been doing it for a long time, but this is their first time getting caught. So, you know, when Nate Diaz said that everybody on steroids, he really meant it as far as majority of the fighters are on PEDs. It wasn't really till Floyd Mayweather came to the boxing game, and he's the pioneer of random drug testing. He pushed that to the forefront for fighters to get, you know, to start doing random drug testing. And that's when him and Manny Pacquiao had a fallout back in 2009, where Manny Pacquiao turned down random drug testing and a 50-50 split plus 50 million guaranteed because he didn't want to do random drug testing. So, you know, the main thing here is if you are clean, take the test. So, you know, ever since Floyd Mayweather, you know, pushed for random drug testing, you saw more fighters get busted more and more for steroids. There have been plenty of fighters from the time Floyd Mayweather pushed for random drug testing when he became the A side till now. There's been a handful. I mean, we lost count. But before that, before Floyd Mayweather demanded random drug testing and kind of make, you know, brought awareness to it, there was plenty of fighters that were cheating behind closed doors that the public never knew about, and we will never we never going to find out about it because, like I said, there was no random drug testing in place. But ever since Floyd Mayweather pushed for the, you know, random drug testing, and I think after he beat Oscar De La Hoya and Ricky Hatton, once he became the A side, he made it clear, if you want to fight me, you must take the test. And ever since then, there have been plenty of fighters that tested positive for PEDs. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up the first caller. How you doing, AKHi? Who this is and where you calling from?
Yo.
Hello?
Yo.
Yeah. You are live. Who this is and where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Virginia.
Yeah. Is there anything in mind you want to get off your chest before we dive into the topic?
Yeah, nah. So I follow bodybuilding.
Okay.
And of course, bodybuilding is like pretty much a sport where you observe muscle development and stuff like that, muscle growth and development and stuff like that. So when you're following bodybuilding, one of the things you're going to learn about in detail is steroids, right? You can learn about steroids, the impact it has on your body and stuff like that. So when you're on steroids, well, not when you're on steroids, but in order for you to build muscle while not on steroids, you have to put yourself in an anabolic zone, right? So you have to eat more calories than you burn, and you can't do a lot of cardio. So boxing is a cardio sport. It's like swimming. You're not going to become big and shredded up with thick, dense muscle while being a boxer. It's not going to happen unless you have like LeBron James or Shaquille O'Neal muscle. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, I can hear you. So that's what I was saying. So a lot of people in the comments, they want to go strictly off of the word of somebody like Victor Conte, which, you know, I respect his level of knowledge, but, you know, he's a person. He's a human being, so he can't be biased. So when he's talking about Canelo, it's like, dude, Canelo fails the eye test right off the bat. Canelo fails the eye test. Guys like Manny Pacquiao, he fails the eye test. You don't even have to test him. It's like, can you move up from 112 to 154 and still have the six pack while being a boxer? First of all, you can't do that without being a boxer. Period. While being a boxer, it becomes that's the part where they're boxing and doing this. That's the smoking gun in itself. So guys like AJ, fighters like Canelo, who are like building all this muscle, but supposedly doing, you know, whether or not they train like by running 5 and 10 miles a day is irrelevant. They're going to do equivalent cardio to that 5 and 10 miles. Maybe AJ didn't want to run today. Maybe he'll swim and burn 3,000 calories swimming in a day. You can't build muscle like that unless you're on steroids. You know what I mean? So all this talk about, oh, Canelo's clean because Victor Conte said so. It doesn't matter who on earth says that Canelo's clean. He walks on that scale and weighs in shredded lean at 168 as a boxer while, you know, a few years ago, he was shredded lean at 150. He was able to weigh in at 150 and looked exactly the same as a boxer. Like, that's the smoking gun. You can't do that. As a grown-ass man, you can't just, okay, I'm going to build 30 pounds of solid muscle. You can't do that as a boxer. It's just not, it's not possible unless you're on steroids.
Well, the smoking gun is when he failed for computer role, regardless how he failed for it, regardless what he want to blame it on. I mean, this man is multi-millionaire. That's somebody that brought, you know, I'm gonna link his video in the comment section below. He broke down how if Canelo is dirty or not, and he talked about how the contaminated meat work, and you know, there's a certain contaminated meat that has multiple steroids and PEDs injected in them. So if you do eat contaminated meat, there's a high possibility that you're going to get tested positive for multiple PEDs and steroids, not just one. So the fact that Canelo tested positive for Combuterol only is already in question. Plus the fact that he failed for PEDs is, you know, stamps the fact that he was cheating, and he got suspended for it. Mind you, when Canelo got busted and failed, when he tested positive for PEDs, that was, I think, 3 months before the fight or 2 months before the fight. He got tested in Mexico. Usually Canelo never get tested in Mexico, but Triple G was highly, you know, suspicious of Canelo, and he informed Vada that he wanted Canelo to be tested right now. And that's when Vada went and knocked on Canelo's door in Mexico. That was his first time getting tested in Mexico. And usually Canelo, he will cycle off before he comes to the United States. But that one time they caught him before. He thought that, oh, they're not going to test me till I go to the States. But they came and knocked on his door. And the first time they tested him in Mexico, he failed for, you know, Combuterol. Like Victor Conte talked about, there's PEDs that will leave your system in 24 hours. So if you get tested, I mean, you get Vada tested like 1 time, 2 times a month. So there's obviously loopholes in the system. So once you get tested, you could immediately start taking PEDs and then after a certain period of time, stop till you get tested again. Once you get tested again, take PEDs again. So there's loopholes in the system, but facts will always remain the same, which is Canelo tested positive for Combuterol. You know, hate it or love it, that's a fact.
Here's the issue I have with that, though. So we're going off of the story put out to us by Vada and by whoever. But here's the facts. We know, this is what we know. We know that Vada is not on the up and up when it comes to testing boxers, particularly boxers, for steroids. Like I said, several fighters that we can see, they failed the eye test. Some fighters have failed drug tests while being tested by Vada, but not failed by Vada. You know what I'm saying? So if you can remember, Dillian White, he failed a drug test for D-ball. It was not supposed to come out. Vada didn't have him as failed for D-ball, but he did have a failed test for D-ball because in the UK, they also test their fighters, right? So now how is it that a steroid as potent as D-ball, which is not one of those quick out of your system drugs, how is it that Vada wasn't able to catch that? So we know that Vada is not on the up and up just by looking at the fighters who are fighting and also being Vada tested. Everybody's getting big and six packs and chest muscles and delts and stuff like that. Maybe it's not stuff so strong as D-ball, but they're on stuff as well. And I'm not gonna lie to you. Listen, I keep it real, man. I keep it real. Devin Haney's legs have gotten really big, man. You know what I mean? He's a Vada guy, but he's a Conte guy as well. You know, not to you know, implicate him or nothing like that, because he still is in the realm of natural. He still kind of somewhat looks natural, but he's building a lot of muscle. Canelo, guys like Canelo and it's like, you know, JoJo and all them, it's steroids, man. Isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
it's not Clenbuterol because
I mean, you got
Clenbuterol is a fat burner. We're talking about, when I say steroids, we're talking about I might even be talking about something more powerful than test, but test is not going to do that either. Test is like a couple notches above creatine. Test is gonna, you're gonna absorb nutrients, you're gonna absorb water, you're gonna get a little bit bigger, but you're not gonna be ridiculously more explosive just off of test. We're talking about like there's designers out there that like so whenever track sprinters and stuff like that pop for steroids, it's never test. You know what I mean? Like when you see Canelo, you see his like reaction times. You see how like Canelo fights like Floyd now. Watch that fight where Floyd actually fights Canelo. His reaction times, his reflexes, they're good, but they're never that good. He was never as slick and agile as he is now. Now he's like a black athlete now, but he wasn't that back in the day. Back in the day, he was like a stiff guy, stiff boxer puncher with some slickness, some head movement. Now he's carbon copy Floyd as a Mexican. You know what I mean? No offense to Mexican fighters and Mexican people.
And I mean, I do want to say is that, obviously you mentioned Devin Haney. Devin Haney is 22 years old and he's still growing. And I was on the phone with him the whole time. And he was, telling me like, basically he pushing for Vada testing every time. He want to get as much testing as possible, but fighters won't sign the contract against him until like 4 weeks before the fight. Linares, the same situation happened with him against Linares. Devin Haney sent the contract to Linares. It was on his desk for a whole month. This dude, Linares, acted like the contract never existed. He never sent him the contract. And then a month later, after Devin Haney tried to call out Lomachenko and fight Loma, then Linares want to negotiate. So what I'm saying is that's how they prolong Vada. Act, lie to the public. Yeah. And that's what JoJo did too. He was prolonging Vada and Devin Haney kept pushing for it. So Devin Haney's still growing. But when you see and it's all natural, but when you see a guy like Canelo, like you mentioned, Canelo had stamina issues. Go watch him against Austin Trout. This man, after the fifth round, or 6th, 7th round, he tired. He's throwing 2 punches a round. Today, he's throwing punches nonstop, all power punches, and he never get tired. Not even once. Never showed, oh, I'm tired now. I'm going to take a round off. Like when he fought Caleb Smith, he never took a round off. He kept beating up on him. And again, EPO is a drug that increases, stamina. That's one of the most dangerous drugs because it have you like a machine. So you could take small doses of it and it helps you. Like Victor Conte mentioned, you could take off camp. You could be training, taking EPO, and then start Vada drug testing eight weeks before the fight. But fight night, you're going to have so much benefit from EPO is out of this world. You could benefit from EPO years after taking it. That's how beneficial is EPO. So, like I said before, there's so many loopholes in the system. And obviously, Vada testing is not 100% is going to catch these guys, but is, you could say 55%, 50%, maybe even 45%. They're going to catch these guys, but it's not guaranteed. I mean, we talked about Dillian White. I think you brought him up. Dillian White, when he fought Oscar, someone named Oscar at the time, he tested positive for PED. Huh?
It was Oscar Rivas.
Yeah, he tested positive for PED, and he failed the A sample. Then the B sample, it took them, I don't know, it took it like 3 months, 4 months for the results to come out. And they told us is negative. They never
released those results.
And they never released those results. You're right. Matter of fact, they never released those.
It wasn't Vada. It wasn't Vada that released the results to the top tech. They never. Vada came out and said that they don't have a positive test for Dillian White. It was the boxing board of the commission of British boxing board. It was UCAD that popped them. Right. So Vada and UCAD were testing them. UCAD popped them, Vada didn't. That's when the red flag for me came up. I was always suspicious. Like I said, I follow bodybuilding. So you can clearly, like, the eye test is what we do. Like, none of those guys passed the eye test. Like AJ, he never passed the eye test for me. Right? Even though you can have natural guys that look like that, but just not as boxers, right? So another thing, this is the last thing I'm gonna say. I used to gamble, right? And then I used to bet boxing based off of what I knew about the steroids and the effects that it has on boxing, right? So I bet over $10,000 on that Mayweather-Pacquiao fight when I learned that Pacquiao was going to be drug tested. I already knew that he wasn't going to be the same guy. Everybody was talking about, Pacquiao's going to do this and that. if he was with Alex Ariza and on that regiment, he would have done something, but he wasn't. So it was impossible for him to be the same guy. Now you're seeing the same thing happen with AJ. Everybody's like, "Oh, what's going on with AJ?" This is what happens when this is the result of prolonged steroid abuse. If you take it too long, then your natural testosterone is going to take a hit. And then when you get off of it, now you're going to be less aggressive, less explosive, worse reaction to Victor Conte went over all the shit. The improvements of explosiveness, power, reaction times, all this shit. Now AJ doesn't have any of that. Watch AJ against Dylan White and watch AJ against Usyk. Just have common sense. You could bet money that AJ will never win another fight against a top fighter ever again in his career unless he jumps back on the stuff that he was on, or probably even have more of it. That's facts, and you can bet your house on that. Like this, I'm not playing games with all these idiots in the comment section that don't really know anything about steroids. I know something about steroids. AJ was on that stuff, and now he's off of it, and now he's shrinking. Every fight, he weighed in 2 years ago at 254. Now he's 234, 235. You know what I mean? He turned pro at 228. He's going back to his natural state. You know what I mean? And now he doesn't have the power he used to. He used to be able to send guys to the moon, man. And now he can't do that no more. Well, same thing with Triple G. You said Triple G was trying to get he ordered a pop-up test for Canelo. Well, what happened to Triple G's power? I watched Triple G damn near kill people in the ring for over 3 years, and now he's hitting people and they're like rolling it off and stuff like that. No. He's off of the stuff too. All right, man.
Well, you still there?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, the icing on the cake is when you fail the test, right? Canelo, he now is enrolled with Vada, so of course Victor Conte is gonna, he liked the fact that Canelo now is enrolled with Vada in order to prove that he's a clean fighter, but that don't change the fact that he tested positive for Combuterol. Now, and that's a fact, and that's will always be in a part of his legacy that he cheated by taking Combuterol. Nevertheless, with all his resources, he should have ate, organic meat. We all know that, so all that is nothing but excuses. You should be held responsible. If you fail the test, that means that's not your first time cheating. But let me ask you this question. Who you have this weekend, winning this weekend? Give me your prediction and your breakdown. Canelo versus Caleb Plant.
Like I said, I used to gamble boxing based almost solely on what I knew about what the fighters were using, if the fighters were using, who was using, who was not. Caleb looks like he's probably using the accepted performance enhancement drugs that they allow, and Canelo most definitely is using the stuff that they don't. And Canelo is also a skilled fighter. He's going to come in with a increase in power. He's going to be able to. You can't fight a guy like that who also has skills. Canelo has skills, and he's going to be overpowered in the ring for 12 rounds. So I don't know what Caleb Plant is going to like. It's going to be like Punch Out. You remember Punch Out when you fight Mike Tyson in the last round, and you got to be perfect to win. You know what I mean? That's what we're asking Caleb Plant to do, and it's not going to happen. I feel like he's going to get stopped to the body. It's going to be Lava Canelo Part 2. He's going to look good early. By round 5, 6, Canelo's going to press him to the body. He's going to cut the ring off. Caleb's going to slow down consistently as you're supposed to if you're natural, round by round by round. And by round 8, 9, he's going to be ready to go.
And so you're picking Canelo by knockout?
By stoppage, yeah.
Yeah, well, my prediction is the same. Look, at the end of the day, I'm rooting for my country. My heart wants Caleb Plant to win. But obviously, I gotta go with my mind, and my mind is telling me Canelo's gonna win via a knockout in the 8th to the 10th round. I truly believe, just like you mentioned, Caleb Plant is gonna outbox Canelo early. There's no secret, because Canelo, he's not that good of a boxer. I mean, we've seen Amir Khan outbox Canelo for 5 rounds, easy. We've seen Lara beat Canelo in my books, and he got robbed. But the point is, Floyd Mayweather outboxed Canelo in his sleep. That was his easiest fight, according to Floyd. Yeah. So Canelo can be outboxed. Even Gennady Golovkin pretty much beat Canelo, according to a whole lot of people. But at the end of the day, or at least the night, I truly believe Caleb Plant will slow down. Once he slow down, I can see Canelo catching up with him, going to the body. I see Caleb Plant, for some reason, he's seeing vulnerable for 2 punches to me. The overhand right and the hook to the head and to the body. I see that breaking Caleb Plant down as the fight go on. I don't think Caleb Plant could handle pressure very well. I seen him against Uzateki. Uzateki came on real strong later on in the fight, and he gave Caleb Plant a hard time. He was catching Caleb Plant clean. So if Uzateki was able to do that, you can't get hit like that against Canelo, who's a better fighter than Uzateki.
Yeah.
When Canelo start catching you like that, you got to go. Because when Caleb Plant get hit, he gets hit clean. It ain't a partial punch. No. He get hit flush. And when you get hit flush like that, it only takes a few for Canelo to get you out of there. So I'm predicting, I hope I'm wrong, but man, I'm telling you, Canelo may end Caleb Plant's career. I'm saying he might not come out the same. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm just saying I agree with Mike Tyson's prediction that this is a tough task for Caleb Plant. But I do see Caleb Plant giving Canelo a hard time. Like I do see him giving Canelo a hard time early on during the fight, outboxing him, so on and so forth, like Billy Joe Saunders, Amir Khan, and you know, all these other fighters that gave Canelo a hard time. But eventually I see Canelo catching up with him and getting him out of there.
Yeah. What are the fights that are going on this weekend? That's the only big one?
Well, we got of course Usman, but you know, obviously that's a good one. He got a rematch coming up, but that's UFC, you know, boxing. Hey,
MMA.
Yeah. But hey, let me get your take on this real quick. Gervonta Tank Davis, obviously, he was supposed to fight Rolly Romero, but Rolly Romero had to pull out due to women accusations, even though that's the first time a fighter had to pull out due to women accusations. Nevertheless, the fight got replaced with a better fight almost. I mean, Pitbull Cruz is a really good fighter. He's the Mexican version of baby Mike Tyson. You know, he's short, compact, and he's aggressive, goes to the body, go to the head, has a lot of power, you know, doesn't get hit clean. He has good head movement. So what's your take on that fight, the whole Rolly replacement, and break that fight down?
Yeah, there's only a few guys that are going to beat Tank at 130 and 135, those weight classes. In my opinion, is Shakur and Devin Haney, and that's it, because they're the only ones that are going to be able to deal with the power and aggression from Tank Davis. This guy, he's a great fighter, but we know that Tank has some kind of chin, like, you know what I mean? Or at least at 135, he has a chin. At 140, you know, Barrios was getting to him a little bit, but Barrios is long, so he can deliver his power safely. You know what I mean? Pitbull is going to have to go into the doghouse to, you know what I mean, deliver his power, and he's just not going to be able to take what's coming back. I don't know what Pitbull's chin is like, because we haven't seen him fight a guy like Tank, and the fight is going to go however which way Tank wants it to go. If Tank wants to outbox this guy for 12 rounds and stop him in the last round, he's going to do that. If Tank finds out that Pitbull's power is not threatening, then Tank is going to increase the aggression to infinity, as he does in every fight. If you can't earn his respect in the first 4 rounds, he's going to stop playing defense and he's going to start stepping. You know what I mean? He's going to start walking you down, almost like Adrian Broner at 35. He's going to stop playing defense and he'll start stepping on you. And Tank is a two-handed puncher. And Pitbull, like I said, I don't know. He doesn't look like he has a ton of defense. He looks like he's going out there. He plays offense for defense. And you just can't do that with Tank. It's going to be a stoppage. You know what I mean? It's going to be a brutal highlight. What's that guy he fought? Going to be a Cruz Part 2 stoppage. Probably earlier than Cruz, because Cruz is a great boxer. Pitbull is a good fighter, but he's not necessarily a great boxer. You know what I mean? So I just see like an uppercut, maybe something to the body, because this guy, like, he bends over, but he wings hooks. He does a lot of hooks. You know, maybe bang both sides, maybe an uppercut. Either hook to the body, uppercut is what I see, because the guy, he has like a Kodo type earmuff. So maybe not a hook to the head, but maybe an uppercut or a hook to the body is what I see as stopping Pitbull.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I
yeah,
agree.
that's yeah.
I agree with you. The only
Pe-
thing, you know, when it comes to
People were
Javante,
saying it's like a good fight.
yeah,
You said what?
yeah, I agree with you. See, when it comes to Javante Tank Davis, the only way you could really give him, you could beat him. I mean, this man, you know, he has devastating power with it, you know, um, with great boxing skills. So when it comes to Tank, the way to beat him obviously is not to get hit by him. How can you not get hit by him? You got to
Yeah,
have excellent defense. You know, the only fighters that will give
yeah,
Javante Tank Davis a challenge is obviously Shakur and Devin Haney because they have the defense. There's no chin out there that's just going to get hit by Tank all night and be able to take his power. That's not how it's going to work. You know, to beat Tank, you have to have the best chin, and the best chin is the one that doesn't get hit. So that's Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. So I agree with you there. Those are really the guys that's going to give Javante Tank Davis his ultimate challenge eventually. But when it comes to Pitbull Cruz, he's like a baby Mike Tyson. He's going to come forward. I see, obviously, Tank Davis boxing him and picking him apart. But, you know, Pitbull Cruz is going to go to the body, and he's going to go to the head with the looping punches. So that's dangerous. But obviously with Javante, I see that uppercut eventually catching Pitbull Cruz in between. But he also have to be careful. If he does miss, obviously he got to be careful with the hooks that's going to come back. But this is a great fight as far as a replacement for Javante Tank Davis. Floyd is a great guy when it comes to marketing. He knows how to market Javante Tank Davis. He's following his own green print of matching him against all these Hispanic
let me
fighters.
ask you a question though. Let me ask you a question though. Do you really like it? Do you necessarily like it the way he's moved? Like, because Devin Haney is in his face. Devin Haney stepped to Tank one time after a fight. He's in everybody's face. So he wants to shoot. But it's like everybody's playing keep away. Tank also, you know, I think Tank can beat Teofimo. I think that would be a good fight. But Tank is not. He doesn't seem like he doesn't seem like he can be bothered to fight other champions or other main fighters. You know what I mean? Except for Ryan Garcia. He asked Ryan wouldn't hide, but he doesn't call out Teofimo. You know, I feel like Teofimo will take that money. You know what I mean? Even though he knows he's going to get beat, but if you're going to fight Tank, that's the most money you're going to make. Like there's no other money that's coming in those weight divisions. Like Devin has millions of followers. I think he might have more followers than Tank. You know what I mean? But he's not going to offer you the money that Tank is going to offer you, though. You know?
Right. Well, the thing is, let me break it down this way. Devin Haney, obviously, respect is earned, not given, and Devin earns everybody respect. Hate him or love him, you got to respect him because, like you said, he wants all the smoke with everybody. Now, Devin moves differently than Javante. Devin is only 22, by the way, for the people that don't know. Javante is 26 right now. So the difference is Javante, he's the A-side when it comes to all of these fights. So the way he looks at it is he views Devin and Shakur as his biggest threat. Like you mentioned their names earlier. He also sees that. He knows what it is. He knows Devin and Shakur are his biggest threat. So he's saving that for last. He's saving that to, okay, I'm a knock out Ryan. Devin gonna knock out or beat T.O. and we're gonna mix it up then. You know, I truly believe how he sees it.
I don't think he wants to fight him though. I don't think he wants to fight him. I think he looks at them as like waves, right?
Well,
so we all know that Tank is
eventually he's gonna have
No, because these guys are 5'8", 5'9", both of them, right? They're going to end up at 47. Like, forget 140. Both of them, by 30 years old, 32, they're going to be 47. Tank is never going to be at 47. He can probably take some cheap, easy fights at 47, like Adrian Broner started off, but he's not going to be he's not going to be a full-time 47. He might not even really be a full-time 40, to be honest with you. So he's going to wait. This is what I think. This is what I think Mayweather's going to do. He's going to wait for those two waves to pass. Like, they're going to keep calling each other out and talking that shit. He's going to wait for them to pass, and then he's going to take all of the non-black competition at 35 and 40. These JoJo Diaz's, guys on that level, the guys that are left, the Burchells that move up and stuff like that, Oscar Valdez when he gets to 35, Tank's gonna clean up all that. But he's not messing with none of these other, Shakur and Devin Haney types. I mean, he might get Lil B-Hop. Lil B-Hop doesn't have a chin, and he gets hit a lot, and Tank could eat that.
Well,
but
listen,
I don't think Tank he's gonna risk.
Well, if he wants to make, that remains to be seen. But if he wants to make the biggest fight and the biggest money, eventually he's gonna have to fight Devin Haney and Shakur down the line when the fight is big enough, because obviously that's the biggest money fight when they both clean out their side of the field. I mean, you got to understand what Floyd Mayweather is doing with Gervonta is following his Money Mayweather green print, which is I'm gonna clean up all these Hispanic fighters because raise sales in the sport of boxing. So you see Tank knock out Pedraza, go after beat Gamboa. Then now he knocked out Barrios, undefeated, and now he fighting Cruz. And this is a good fight. It's a marketing tool to promote Gervonta and get his name to be bigger and bigger and bigger. Once he knock out Ryan Garcia,
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Mayweather started his career fighting black. A lot of people talk crap about Mayweather. They don't understand. Mayweather started his career fighting black fighters. The last great black fighter that he fought in his fight was Zab Judah, but that was in like 2005. But before then, he was fighting all black fighters. Sean Bay Mitchell, you know what I mean? The Drunken Master, all the other guys. Chop. He was fighting black fighters. And then he realized when he got on his own, what's the point of that? Because black people don't support boxing like Hispanics do. So he just started fighting guys like Mike Dana, Victor Ortiz, all those guys. So now that he knows that, now when we...
Yeah.
I was saying, when you say the green print, understand that like the Pretty Boy is not what you're talking about. When you're talking about green print, you're talking about money. And money wasn't fighting Prime Andre Berto or nothing like that. Money wasn't fighting Kell Brook in 2010 and all that, like he was supposed to after Mike Jones got stopped. Money wasn't fighting those guys. You know what I mean? So Tank is not going to fight Devin Haney. Tank is not going to fight Shakur. Shakur is okay with not fighting Tank. No, nobody. You know what I'm saying? So all these guys are going to fight around each other.
I disagree. I think Shakur already calling out Tank. He's saying that that's going to be his big fight down the line. But see what, and he even said
down the line is like cold though.
Yeah, but he
down the line is like cold words,
man. He can't even get Oscar Valdez. That's what he facing reality. He knows it's not going to happen. He could call Tank from today to tomorrow. He could tweet. Every tweet could be about Tank. He ain't gonna get it. So he's just being, he's just facing reality. He's just facing reality. Like, okay, in order for me to get this Tank fight, I got to beat Oscar Valdez. I got to get all these belts, and then, do this. He has to build his profile, and he knows that in order to get the Tank fight, he already know Floyd is not going to make it happen, and Tank is not going to want to fight that top of a talent, right now. So the point I'm making, you're right with Floyd Mayweather. You can't. People compare Floyd to all these fighters. Now, listen, Floyd is like Devin Haney. Floyd, when he was Pretty Boy, is like Devin Haney today. He was the boogeyman. Everybody was ducking Floyd Mayweather. That's what Floyd Mayweather had to do to become the A side. You don't just wake up one day, one night, and become the A side. You have to, if you're a fighter on the coincidental list, especially, you got to build your way to become the A side. So, Floyd beat all these fighters, put himself at, in not even in the B side, he put himself in the Z side against Oscar De La Hoya to get the fight. And when he beat him, he then became the A side. When Floyd, he fought black fighters as Money Mayweather. He fought Sugar Shane Mosley after he knocked out Margarito. He was planning on fighting Andre.
No.
He was planning on. Hold on.
That was all. Those are.
Yeah. Well, let me just finish this. He was planning on fighting Andre Berto. Remember, he went to Andre Berto versus Ortiz, but Andre Berto ended up getting beat that night, so he fought Ortiz instead. So what I'm saying is the money fights are the legacy fights. The money fights are the biggest fights. Like if Ryan fight Tank, that's a legacy fight. That's also a money fight. See, that's what people don't get here. Money fights are legacy fights. Devin Haney versus Tank, that's a money fight and a legacy fight. That's the biggest fights of them all.
I don't know.
Versus Shakur, down the line, that's one of the biggest fights of them all, if not the biggest.
Yep.
Errol versus Terrence Crawford. That's American fan base, nothing but American fan base. And guess what? That's the biggest fight in boxing. So money fights are the legacy fights. People try to twist it and say, "Oh, you're being a businessman." Like Canelo today, for example, Canelo versus Benavidez is the biggest money fight right now for him, along with Charlo. Canelo versus Charlo is the biggest money fight. It's also a legacy fight. So money fights are legacy fights. You see, Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders, Canelo versus Caleb Plant, Canelo versus Ivy Yildirim. These aren't legacy fights. These aren't money fights. These are cherry pick fights. These are safe fights. So when people say Floyd Mayweather green print,
those are duck.
Yeah, those are duck, right? When people say Floyd Mayweather green print is the money fights. Oh, you know, Floyd Mayweather, he's only a businessman. He's only about the money. Money fights are legacy fights, you dummy. Like for Max Kellerman, he always say that. He tried to discredit Floyd by saying, "Oh, he a businessman." No. The money fights are the legacy fights. The Pacquiao fight was the legacy fight for Floyd. Canelo fight was the legacy and a money fight for Floyd. So the point that I'm trying to make is, if fighters follow the Floyd Mayweather green print, we will get all the fights we want. From Ryan versus Tank, from Oscar Valdez versus Shakur, from Teofimo Lopez versus Devin Haney, from you name it, you know, from Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, Canelo versus Charlo, back in the day, Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. But these fighters aren't willing to take these money fights because these legacy fights are too risky. Again, money and legacy go hand to hand. That's the Floyd Mayweather green print. It's both money and legacy. Floyd Mayweather did that. That's why he became the biggest pay-per-view star of all time. On the other hand, these fighters aren't willing to do it, like Canelo and these guys today, like Teofimo. He telling Tank, "I'm the A side." I know Tank want to fight Teo, but the problem is Teo already said, "I'm the A side," because he said, "Oh, if you're not going to recognize me as the A side, I'm not going to fight you." So guess what? Tank ain't going to entertain that bullshit. He's going to continue to follow the Floyd Mayweather green print as far as fighting the Hispanic fighters, because he knows race sells in the sport of boxing. That's why I think Pitbull Cruz is a brilliant idea. You know, that's a brilliant fight, because a lot of people say, "Oh, Gary Russell, fight Gary Russell." But, you know, Gary Russell have been inactive for 2 years. Gary Russell, you know, he 126 pounder. Like now you want him, you want him to move up two weight division. And after 2-year layoff, that's an excuse. That's an excuse made already there. They're going to discredit Tank right there. So why fight Gary Russell? If Gary Russell really want the smoke, because I see Gary calling out Tank, so on and so forth. If Gary Russell really want the smoke, why he ain't calling out Devin Haney? Bill Haney came on the show and said, "Hey, we can't get JoJo in the ring."
He did.
Yeah, but
he did, but you know how boxers talk, man.
That's what I'm saying. But that's my point. Like, you see Devin Haney before, like right now, he obviously agreed to JoJo has just agreed to fight Devin Haney like yesterday. But I'm talking about before that. For months, Devin Haney couldn't find an opponent, and Gary Russell, he could have easily stepped in and said, "Hey, that 1.5 you giving JoJo, that 1.8 you giving JoJo, give it to me, and I'll fight you. I'll take Vada drug test right now." And why didn't Gary Russell say anything about Devin Haney? Because he knows Devin Haney want the smoke. If he would have told Eddie that, Eddie would have sent him the contract like the day of. But he want to say that to Tank because they know they're not going to entertain it. So I mean, I can't even believe anything Gary Russell's that Gary Russell says right now because you know, like I said, he ruined his reputation with the Devin Haney mess. Because, like I said, Devin Haney's available this whole time. He never said, "Hey, Devin, let's make it happen," since you don't have an opponent. But as soon as Tank is available, he's barking. So that's why I believe the Pitbull replacement is a brilliant replacement for Rolly. You know, so that being said, you know, let your last.
It's definitely a better fight.
Yeah, say it again. Yeah, I said, you know, give me your last comments before I let you go, because my studio is about to die on me like in a few.
Okay, my bad. So I just want to say this last thing about the go back to the steroid issue. a lot of the top boxers are on steroids. It's just what it is. You can finagle the gambling situation if you know who's on what and when they're off and stuff like that. So AJ, for all you listeners who want to bet, AJ's going to rematch Usyk. Like, try to see and figure out what his situation is like. So if he's still in the UK, if he's still training in the UK, for whatever reason, I don't think he's like able to use in the UK anymore. I hate to like talk like this because I don't actually have 100% evidence, but you can just like all the guys who follow bodybuilding, they can look and see exactly what's going on as clear as day. We don't need like written down evidence. We don't need Conte the second where we're saying nothing like that. So AJ's not on that stuff, right? So if he's weighing in at under 238, 237 and stuff like that, he's probably not on, right? And if he's not on, pick Usyk to beat him. And don't be surprised if Usyk stops the next fight. So that's all I got.
Appreciate it, man. And talk to you next time. Thank you.
All right, man.
All right. And, man, how you doing, AKHi? Who this is? Where you calling from?
AKHi, what's good? OG Swag.
OG Swag, man. Man, by the time you called in, my brother, how you doing? Yes, sir.
Good, good. You can hear me clear?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly. What's your prediction this weekend? Canelo versus Caleb Plant.
Canelo. I'm going to pick Canelo because he wouldn't pick Caleb Plant unless he was very, very sure he was going to beat him. Right? So I'm going to go with Canelo. I mean, if Plant is able to move around, right, and use his footwork and stuff like that and catch up Canelo, then he has a better chance, right? But like we've seen with Canelo, his endurance has just gone through the roof. So, I mean, before, he was getting tired out in the later rounds, right? So Caleb Plant could have used his footwork, took him into deep water, and then maybe finished in the later rounds. But now Canelo, his cardio is just up there for some reason, right? So, yeah, I'm going to go with Canelo. Even though I want Plant to win, I think Canelo picks him, and he's picking when he knows there's something he can exploit. So that's my prediction.
And when he won it, he ain't going to let it go. You know, when he won it, you know, when Canelo wants you, like Kovalev, Caleb Plant, Avini, he going to negotiate and give you all the money you want, you know. So you're right.
Exactly.
He sees something in Canelo. Canelo sees something in Caleb Plant. That's why he picking to fight him. But also, what's your take on, the replacement opponent, Pitbull Cruz, instead of Rolly Romero after the women accusations?
I don't know too much about the kid. So, like I said, bottom line is people are going to go see the fight because Tank is a draw, right? So, I don't know too much about the kid, but you're going to get a good fight with Tank. No matter who he fights.
It's fireworks.
He's entertaining. He's exciting. He's got style. He brings out the stars. So you're going to get your entertainment's worth when Tank shows up. But it would be nice to see him actually fight some tougher competition, right?
Man, it's gonna be fireworks because Tank. You know, one thing about Tank is that he's obviously a devastating puncher, the most exciting fighter in boxing,
right.
and this guy Pitbull Cruz, for the people that don't know, he's like baby Mike Tyson. I mean, he keep coming forward. He got good head movement, good power, goes to the body, go to the head. So it's gonna be an explosion for sure. I mean, if we would have had, because I was really devastated about the Rolly fight not happening because I really wanted to see the fight. That was gonna be an entertaining fight and a great build-up too. But this is a great replacement. You know, Floyd definitely found a good opponent to replace Rolly with. And one thing I would say, the thing about Gervonta is that he's always fighting guys bigger than him, taller than him, has more reach than him. Right. So for the first time, he's fighting somebody that has less reach than him and probably shorter than him. He's the same size as Gervonta, but the thing is, in my opinion, Gervonta, a lot of people call him Baby Mike, but the thing is, he fight like he's Baby Floyd. He's more of a boxer. So you give Tank the height and reach advantage, that's trouble for Pitbull Cruz. Nevertheless, Pitbull Cruz
Right.
is like a baby Mike Tyson. Like literally, he fights like one with his style. So it's gonna
Right.
create fireworks. And like I
Right.
said, this fight is gonna sell right out. California, Pitbull is Mexican. So this is
Well, you never know.
fireworks.
You never know. Right. You never know. Maybe the height advantage or disadvantage for Tank, it might be awkward for him. You never know, because maybe he's used to fighting bigger fighters. Same with Anthony Joshua. Seems to get trouble from smaller fighters as well, right? So he lost to Usyk, gave him trouble, and Andy Ruiz, right? So we never know how that might play out.
You're right. You're right. That's a good point. We shall see. But the thing about Gervonta, he's multidimensional. When he fought the guy
he's gonna
for
win.
the title,
He's gonna win.
Yeah,
he's gonna win for sure.
Yeah, remember when he fought the guy for the
but
title?
We never know. Maybe
what's the guy he fought for the title?
Yeah. No, I mean,
Pedraza.
Say it again.
Was the guy? I think the guy he fought for the title was Pedraza, and that's the night I was really impressed because he was on his back foot tearing Pedraza up with these accurate counters. So when I saw that, I was like, man, that's impressive. The thing is, like you said, he used to fighting guys taller than him. Pedraza was taller than him, has had more reach than him. So as an aggressive fighter, that's a disadvantage if you're going to come forward, apply pressure.
Right.
But Pitbull Cruz is a short, stocky fighter that's good, that want to mix it mix it up in the inside. So it's a little different there. So it's gonna be great to see. Let's see how Tank deals with that style, something different. And like I said,
it could be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and then like I said, I stand by what I say. I mean, I would love to see Gervonta versus Gary Russell in the near future for sure. That's a fight that has to happen. But Gary Russell has to move up in weight. He has to get a win at least. I mean, he haven't fought for 2 years. People keep mentioning him.
But guy hasn't fought though. He hasn't. When was the last time he fought? Like the guy only fights once a year?
Yeah, I mean, he haven't fought. He fights once a year, but he haven't fought for 2 years now. And the thing is, you got to stay active. You got to stay relevant. And he turned down opportunities to fight, not just against Devin Haney. He turned down $1.5 million against Devin Haney. He turned down another opportunity against Josh Warrington in the UK for $1 million. He would have slept the guy in one round. Gary Russell would have slept that guy in one round, and he turned the fight down. I'm like, why would you do that? I mean, he keep doing himself a disservice by turning these fights down. Forget the Devin Haney fight that was dangerous. That fight was dangerous stylistically, and he had to move up two-weight divisions. I'm talking about the fights you could have easily won against a guy like Josh Warrington that Eddie Hearn offered him. And then a Mexican ended up beating Josh Warrington, knocked him out with ease. So Gary Russell let a big opportunity, a big unification go. So him calling out Tank every time Tank is available ain't going to cut it. You got to put yourself in position. You got to stay active because you're moving up two-weight divisions and being, being, I think, a 2-year layoff, being in a 2-year layoff, that's a building excuse right there. The public ain't going to want to see it as much if you are active, if you are in the same division, so on and so forth. So, like I said, if Gary was really serious about the smoke, Devin Haney was available for a long time before he signed to fight Jojo Diaz. I never heard I never heard Gary Russell knock on Devin Haney's door to want to fight him, especially after he claimed he was going to send Devin Haney a contract, which he never did. That contract never arrived till this day. You know what I'm saying? So the problem with Gary Russell is that he has to realize that, barking at Tank ain't going to cut it. He got to talk the talk and walk the walk. So, like I said, Devin was available. He never knocked out. He never, Bill Haney came on my show, said, hey, Gary Russell, we're going to offer you even more money than last time. He's still, not answering the call. But when it's Tank, he's barking at Tank. So he has to change his approach. He has to put himself in position.
Well, yeah. And Tank doesn't really need to respond because this is the thing. Like you said, you have to stay active to keep your profile up there. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're not getting the best fights, you take what fights you can. Even with Devin Haney, this guy can't get a fight, right? And he's trying. These guys want to fight him. But you got to take whatever fight you can and demolish those guys in astounding fashion, right? To keep your profile up there. Because we can look at Keith Thurman. Nobody cares about this guy anymore. The guy didn't want to fight for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So there's really no public pressure demand for Errol Spence to fight him. So, like you were saying, the best way to keep yourself up there in the public eye, keep your name up there, is to keep fighting, to take whatever fight you can and just demolish everybody, right? And that puts you in a better position, just like you said, to get that next big fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, and that's the thing. Like I said, you gotta, and he had the opportunities to. I mean, it's one thing if Gary never had an opportunity to fight, and he was just being avoided. I will understand, but when you had a Josh Warrington opportunity, forget about the Devin Haney opportunity where it was a dangerous fight, and I understand why you wouldn't want to fight Devin moving up 2-weight divisions. I wouldn't. I don't care who you are. You wouldn't want to put yourself in that top of position. But against a guy like Josh Warrington, an easy payday, free money. That was free money that he let go. $1 million to go sleep a guy and then end up with 2 belts. That's how you. And then after that, you could have called out Tank Davis. Then the people, the buzz would have been so big. Tank then probably would have had to respond. So that's the problem with Gary Russell, and that's why I think Pitbull is a good choice, because Pitbull is an active fighter. He just fought not too long ago. And he's ranked on the top 10 at lightweight. So it's a fight that makes sense because I believe he's ranked higher than Rolly. You know, he's a top 10 fighter at lightweight and he has a lot of buzz. So of course that fight makes sense more than a Gary Russell, because this guy's ranked on the top 10 and he's active. Plus he's Hispanic, he's Mexican, and Gervonta Tank Davis is going to fight him in California. So any last thoughts on anything we talked about earlier, so on and so forth?
Yeah. Last thing I'm going to touch on is Canelo stuff. All right. Canelo is definitely on something. I will tell you that 100% sure. Right? There's no way. This guy is 5'8", 160 pounds, and then he moved up from 160 to 175. Right? Now I bodybuild, I train, all that kind of stuff. I'm about 5'10", 185. For me to put on 15 pounds of solid muscle within 6 months or less is not possible naturally. It's not possible, right? This guy is 5'8". If Wilder, if you convert that to Wilder at 6'7", that would be the equivalent of Wilder putting on like 40 to 50 pounds of muscle in 6 months, right? At his height. It's not possible. And there's no way, because you could see him when he put on the weight, he didn't put on any fat. He kept the same amount it was all lean muscle. So there's no way a guy at that height can go from 160, 175, drop down to 168, go and drop muscle mass like that, up and down, unless he's on something. So those are facts. And then again, he's probably on some stuff that we've never seen before, those designer drugs, and they're spiking on and off, and they're timing it. And he has the best trainers or physicians in the world, right? So that's what most of these boxers are doing. Then when they do get popped, right, they got caught off guard, or they timed it, or a day off, and that's why these guys are getting popped. You can take a look at what's that guy name from Billy Joe Saunders. When he fought Canelo, he was definitely on something. When you look at him, like how tight his skin was, it doesn't look natural. He's on something. AJ definitely is on something. So that caller that was a few callers before, when you're talking about it, AJ, before he went into the fight with Ruiz, this guy looked like an animal. He was about 250, 256, like shredded, veins popping out like the Incredible Hulk, right? That's not natural, right? And that's where his power came from, right? He was probably on AJ, he's probably on everything, right? And then he dropped down, 30 pounds in a couple months? So, yeah, definitely, you can tell. You can look at a guy like Tank, right? He's muscular, but he doesn't look like he's a freak. That's natural. You can look at a guy like Teofimo Lopez. He's in very good shape. That's natural. Doesn't look like a freak, right? Even Devin Haney. Devin Haney's ripped, but you can look at his arms like he isn't filled out, right? That's natural, right? So that's the last thing I want to say. There's no denying that Canelo moving up in that weight, jumping up and down with that amount of muscle mass, he's definitely on something for sure.
And that's what Paulie Malignaggi mentioned.
That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, OG. That's what
100%. If you work out and you train and stuff like that, you can tell a guy that's not. You can tell what's, for you to put on that amount of weight, for me to do what he did, that would take me at least naturally dieting, eating 1,000% proper. It would take me a year to do that. And this guy had a fight where he was at 160, and then he rushed into another fight with Kovalev and jumped up to 175. Not possible. Not possible naturally. So I'll tell you that.
And
right so anyways, that's all I got to say.
Yeah. And before I let you go, LG, you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing for sure, like I said before, Canelo tested positive for PEDs, for steroids, clenbuterol. So when you get busted, both the A and the B sample, not just one, both the A and B sample. So when you get tested and you fail a drug test, that stamps the fact that you cheated. Because guess what? When it ain't like I'm a cheat today and get caught today. No, when you cheat and you get busted cheating, that means you have been cheating before. You cheated before, you just never got caught. That's what it means. But it happened that one time Canelo was in Mexico.
Yeah, it's like if your wife caught you cheating the first time, you've done it another 3 or 4 times. Not you personally, but just in general.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. You know what I mean? It's just she caught you the first time.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
That's the point.
So
exactly. And
without a doubt.
And he talked about it. Victor Conte, he broke it down on how these fighters can get away, when it comes to Vada drug testing or any kind of testing, especially any kind of testing.
Right. And it's corruption too. It's corruption too. Because we saw what they did with Valdez. We saw what they did with Dillian White, right? When he had that second B sample, just disappeared in thin air. So, especially in the UK, right? They're all saying Eddie Hearn, those guys paid off. So, there's been corruption in boxing since the day it started, right? So, definitely what he was saying was correct. Now, the thing I will say about the clenbuterol is just a fat burner. So, what people usually use it for, like say, a regular guy is, up here in Canada, we have our summer seasons. A lot of guys here, they get on their little cycle, do a little testosterone, do a little whatever, and then they time it. And then what they do is they jump up some clenbuterol, and that just shreds you, takes off the last 10 pounds of fat. So you have nice six fat, blah, 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 blah. Right? That's what clenbuterol is. It's more of a fat burner. It's not going to make you faster or give you endurance or anything like that, but it'll help you lose weight, right? If you need to lose weight to make a weigh-in, or it could be a masking agent for other stuff, right? So definitely, he would either use some other stuff or he used it to make weight. Same as what
stamina, weight.
Valdez is using.
Yeah, stamina and weight. Helps your stamina, and we know Canelo has stamina issues before. Don't have them now, but again, his stamina.
Right. So he's on other stuff. That computer will probably get the masking agent.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much.
But,
like I said,
that's all I got. But I want to thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, like I said before, it's so much stuff in the sport of boxing. Like I said, there's so many loopholes you could get away with. So just because you get Vada drug tested, don't mean you're gonna get busted. There's loopholes in the system, but it's a risk. It's a risk you have to take if you're gonna cheat and get Vada drug tested.
Yeah,
it's a risk you're gonna have to take. If you're gonna try to cheat during the time being. However, off season, before Vada drug testing even start, you could do, you could get away with cheating all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? You could take all the clenbuterol you want or whatever the case may be and get away with it as long as you clean your system right before testing start. Where Victor Conte said that you could clean your system within 24 hours when it comes to certain PEDs. So we know that's very possible to do. Nevertheless, great talking with you always, OG. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I want to thank you for the gear. Gear looks hot, looks proper.
Oh man, I appreciate it.
Thank you again for sending that to me.
Yeah, all day, every day, man. You A1, day one, all day, every day. All right, take care, man.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Yeah, thanks.
Subscribe below, click on the notification bell, and to be continue on the next episode of AKHi TV. Peace, and we out here.
but you could call me a can man, because anybody can get it. Africans, Americans, Dominicans, Mexicans, anybody can get it.